Welcome to, I don't know. I don't even know what this is. This is just like a compilation of questions, of things that I've worked out, of stuff. I don't know. This is a bit of a mixed bag, just between videos. So I do these kind of videos, for anyone who's new to the channel, when I'm kind of in between projects and I don't really know what to do. I don't know how to keep the channel going. It's been a little while since my last upload, which was the Northern Territory HDR video thing. It was pretty cool. But now we're going to be talking about Photoshop. If you like the way that I'm moving around, I'm not actually using my mouse right now because my mouse, when I'm zoomed in, okay, well, it's not even working anymore. It's the MX Master. The MX Master's integration with macOS is absolutely horrible. So the scroll wheels stop working sometimes. Basically, if you want smooth scrolling like this and the ability to kind of zoom in and out with just like fingers, kid name finger, just go and buy a Magic Trackpad. They're amazing. I love Magic Trackpads. Ever since I talked about them, again, like 2 years ago. I really like them. I highly recommend them. If you're a video editor, if you're a graphic designer, you should have a Magic Trackpad. Don't just use a mouse and a keyboard. Sometimes you need something to interface your fingers rather than your hand with the application, and this is what it enables. So one thing, for reference, I've been using Photoshop for a really long time now. And I really love it as a tool, as a graphics creation program. I prefer Photoshop to Illustrator. That being said, I don't know Illustrator as good as I know Photoshop. But basically, Photoshop and After Effects are my two Adobe applications that I could not live without. I cannot do what I do without those two applications. Because they're very, very good, and there's not really an alternative on the market that integrates the same way with them. Plus, you can actually import Photoshop files straight into Final Cut Pro. For those of you who didn't know, you can do that, and it has exactly the same control that Premiere Pro would have, where you can select layers and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. It's really, really, really cool. But let's say you have a curve like this. I downloaded this from Wikipedia. And I'm going to have to transform it and do it a bit. Also, really interestingly, look down here. They've got transparency. I don't know why this little section down here is transparent. There's another section up here which is transparent. Wikipedia, what's going on there? I don't really know. But either way, let's say that we have a curve and we start down here and then we go right the way up to about here. And that's more or less a straight line. And then we want to go up to here. I never knew how to control these handles, but I do now. So we've created that curve. It looks pretty on point, looks pretty good. But then how do you do the curve up here? Well, I'm about to show you. Let's say, for example, we create a point here, right? And we stretch out our curve. We can now stretch it out to kind of match whatever we want. But the thing is, we can't get a perfect curve because for whatever reason, it's not really supported. So we can create that curve right there. Then we can hold down the Option key and select this. Oh my God, you can control these curves individually. I never knew this. I never knew that this was a feature that you could do in Photoshop. So now I'm really good at creating curves. I'm really good at it. So yeah, I love that I know this functionality now. Now, obviously, you can get a better curve than I could in just like 2 seconds, but that's crazy. I never knew that you could do that, which is really, really cool. So there you go. If you could never follow the tutorials that Adobe had or any other person had because you didn't really know what they were talking about, that is how you do it. You just click and drag, and then you can hold down Option on macOS. I think it's Alt on Windows, and you can kind of do that. I have always wondered how is there an automated way that you can kind of get that to work, and there is a way to do it, and it's basically where you can turn a selection into a path. So if we go into the Quick Selection tool and we enable Enhance Edge for a better selection of this particular part of the graph here, we can see that bam, grabs it. And then we can go into our parts panel, which is over here. So it should just be connected to the layers panel, and we can click parts. And down here, we've got make work path from selection. Now what you can do from here is my personal recommendation, hold down the Option key or the Alt key on Windows if you're using a Windows system, and click on that little dialog, and it's going to bring up this make work path. Now, by default, your value is probably going to be a 2.0, anything between a 2 and a 5. What tolerance is trying to refer to is how much of a change between pixels or between points in a vertex in a straight line does it have to be until I create a new vertex, rather than just hoping that the line will kind of curve. Now, if you set a tolerance of 2, you're going to get, an okay-ish curve. We can see that there's definitely points where we are overextending here or underextending. We can see there's even points where it's kind of like a jagged kind of transition, and that will reflect in what we're about to do now. So my recommendation here is to set a much more aggressive tolerance. So if we set a tolerance of 0.5, that is going to give us a much finer curve along here, a lot more points to work with, and that's going to provide us more how can I say, more flexibility when it comes to that. Now, there is one slight problem, and that is this. So this here should be a straight line, when in reality, it is most definitely not. It is definitely not a straight line. It's created a bunch of these points here. Now, to be honest, those points aren't really going to matter all that much. When you actually zoom out of the shape and you have it like in a thumbnail or as a graphic on a website, it doesn't actually matter all that much. But when you have it as kind of like a vector image or as like something to use in another application, say for example After Effects, it is going to make a difference. So if you can kind of get in there and kind of get rid of all these points and be bothered to do that, then yes, sure, that's okay. Now my question is, how can I go in and how can I select all of these points here? How can I like go like, there we go. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Lets me do it. So then I can just oh my gosh, you are witnessing, ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing the live creation of something completely new. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's great. Okay. I didn't know this. I did not know this. With the pen tool, if you hold down the command key or it's probably not the Windows key. It's probably Alt, I guess, or Control. I'm not sure what it is on Windows. You can actually mass select vertex points, and then from there you can remove whatever you want. So this straight line now is a very straight line. That's great. And we can see here with this path, now that we've edited it, and I do recommend that you edit it now rather than after you've generated the shape, we can go in and we've got this little work path here. We can select this work path, we can go up, we can go edit, and then we can click define custom shape. Now I'm going to call this shape CIE-1931 gamut curve and hit enter like that. And all of a sudden we get no kind of prompt. Once you've hit enter, yes, it generates a shape. So now what we can do is we can go into our shapes kind of thing and select on the custom shape tool. And by the way, you can actually cycle through your tools by just going shift, holding down shift and clicking the tool kind of hotkey, and it works quite well. We can then click in here and we can see down here CIE-1931 gamut curve. If you don't see labels or kind of like a list like that, you can go here and you can just put text only, and that'll kind of put it into this mode. Obviously, if you want to see, thumbnails and stuff like that, you can do that. I prefer text because, now that I have discovered this, I'm going to be working with these kind of shapes a lot more. I want to kind of know what I'm dealing with. So if I select the CIE-1931 gamut curve, what we can then do is we can just click and drag, hold the Option key and the Shift key, so it creates it from the center, and then bam, we get a perfect shape. Now all you have to do is spend a little bit of time playing around and kind of matching up this shape. Usually if you line it up in the corner over here and then kind of drag it out, you can kind of slowly get the shape that you want. It's just a little bit of trial and error is all that I've found. I would say that that is pretty close. But you can see there's still a border around that. That border was still present even if you had to just filled in the selection that we had before, 110%, like of course. But what we can do now, because it's a shape and not just a filled in layer, we can go to the shape and we can change the stroke on it. We can change the stroke. We can change everything about this because it's a dynamic shape. It is considered as a shape in Photoshop, not just a generic smart object or a rasterized layer. So I can actually change this and I can say, I want a 2-pixel stroke. And all of a sudden, we can see the stroke is starting to fill in more and more inconsistencies here. Now, what you're kind of looking for is you want to make sure that the shape is filling all of the kind of surrounding area. So I think that if we just set a 2.5 pixel outline, we're getting pretty close here. We are getting pretty close. I would even say if we just scale it up a little bit more, that's close. That's near on accurate. That's perfect. I would class this as a perfect mask. This is the kind of thing that you can do in Photoshop that you can't do with Rotobrush and After Effects. This is why I prefer doing this in Photoshop and then importing it into After Effects, because it's very easy to tell After Effects, I only want this layer to be my mask. That's all I want. Now we can actually see here, this is a near on perfect mask. Like, it is imperceivable to tell, which is fantastic. So this solves a couple of problems that we had. It solves the problem of getting the perfect curve on a shape and automatically kind of having the pen tool kind of snap to a curve. And it also solves the problem of strokes. I had an issue with, okay, well, I didn't have an issue with a stroke, but I had issues with the way strokes were generated. If you just right click and go blending options and add a stroke like this, it's not actually, it's not an anti-aliased stroke. It's not an alias stroke, which means that it generates all these artifacts and the line isn't as smooth. When you actually use a stroke from a shape, it is aliased. All Photoshop is kind of saying is, I'm going to expand out this shape on its outer edges, but I'm still going to alias the edges. So it works pretty well. That's kind of how I'm going to start to be doing all of my kind of masking work in the future. Photoshop is a very powerful tool. I wish I had have learned this eons ago. I will see if I can do the same thing in After Effects and see whether it is just as easy or whether it is more complicated. Who knows? But nevertheless, there's that. Do with it what you will. If you enjoyed this video or you want more kind of tutorials, you want to know how to do something, leave a comment and I'll see what I can do.